guess so as well. Obviously, could be a visual bug. We're not quite sure. But Vici moving to the Senna and Graves, pretty interesting because we don't see Senna here all that often. Of course, iBoy is one of the people who did gravitate towards it in spring and has even played it once in summer. And when you see a Senna, it does usually point out that you're going to play a more heavy solo lane-centric comp in the early game.
And it definitely, just like looking at the first picks alone, LNG screams, we want to win fast with the Kalista. Vici scream, we want to scale up with the Senna. So already, just in the first few picks, we got drastically different styles of compositions coming through.
Yeah, and it's really interesting because the fact that LNG does have the Kalista opens up strategies like the Taric, which we don't see all that often, but is still incredibly strong.
And this is one of the duos that we highlighted about Vici in spring. This was one of their staples for iBoy and Hung to play this Taric Kalista combo.
And obviously, Kalista Taric really excels against compositions that want to come into and play very close range because that's where that Taric ultimate really excels. And it looks like Vici are potentially already setting up for that with the Graves and now the Galio hover as well.
Vici basically saying, look, if you want to come into melee range, we're happy to meet you there. Go for a bit of a brawl in the mid-game now as we move towards the bans here. Vici need to try and shut down this game plan for LNG. So what's the go-to here for the side of Vici?
So for Vici, you want to get more engaged to bring that Galio in onto the likes of a Zoe and Kalista. So for LNG, I want to see them ban out those engage options, right? Take out things like the Wukong that Cube can go on very easily and get him onto the likes of Maple.
So maybe looking towards these top lane bans for the side of Vici. Also support. I mean, actually, yeah, the Wukong can just be a support.
Yep, does go with the Sen as well. But you know what else is interesting? We just said, oh, Vici can put more engage in their composition. We've seen Cube play Sion.
That's true. So if there's one champion that's pretty good at engaging, Sion is happy to just run at the enemy. We'll see if Vici are going to opt into that one. I mean, honestly, Sion is kind of blind pickable as well. He doesn't have that many bad matches.
Exactly, but moving over to LNG for a second, the good thing about their comp is I feel like you can pivot depending on what Vici picks on forward, because if they pick something that still wants to go in, LNG can try to go more towards this comp that plays with the range, as compared to if they draft something more of like a mid-range type champion. LNG still have good setup for an all-in themselves with the Kalista.
Yeah, I'm really curious where LNG are going to go on the top side of the map as well as this jungle role, because look at the bans coming through. Pantheon banned away from XX here, as well as the Jarvan and the Ola.
So the Pantheon one's interesting because if you go and check solo queue right now, supports are spamming Pantheon. I'm seeing a lot of Kai'Sa Pantheon, which is pretty surprising, but also does give a pretty interesting dive comp.
Yeah, I mean, alongside a Senna as well, Pantheon's more than happy to soak that farm up, so being taken off the board. We're going to see the Tahm Kench from Hung.
Yeah, so right now Vici are actually saying they want to play at arm's reach, and we keep seeing these more defensive Galios that aren't really able to get into the backline on their own, and it actually doesn't seem to work too well here in the LPL. I really like this answer coming out from LNG because we said, hey, LNG have the Zoe. They can play at, arm's reach and just try to whittle down the members of Vici.
We do have the Volibear being hovered right now, which could be the blind pick for the top lane in Flandre. We have seen him blind pick this before, though, against Curse on OMG. He got destroyed by the Fiora. We literally saw the clip of him getting run around by the Fiora. They're still going to be confident in locking this Volibear in blind.
And the fact that Vici have a Senna Tahm Kench, so you can play more around the top side of the map with those globals, sets up a really good split push type counter pick. We've talked about the Fiora. Jax does quite well as well. You could also open up something like a Kled. You just have a ton of split push options as Vici, and it would actually fit their comp quite well.
And you can see Vici toying with the idea of that counter pick, or just go for the Renekton. It's something we've seen 1,000 times.
Champions that look like or are Renekton much.
Well, he does look like Renekton, and he is Renekton, so ticking both boxes at the same time. So talk to me about these compositions then, Lyric, because I'm not going to lie, on paper, I feel like if LNG can get a snowball rolling, they have a huge advantage.
Yeah, I like what LNG have put together. They have a lot of pick potential coming out from this Zoe in the mid lane. You don't exactly want to look for the 2v2 up against something like a Graves and Galio, but the name of the game for LNG should be more about these early game, one-item power spike skirmishes in front of Dragon and Rift Herald.
So looking towards those neutral objectives on the other side of the board. Vici Gaming with a Senna AD carry with this Galio. A bit more of a defensive composition. A lot of shields coming on through here, a lot of healing as well. But most importantly, trying to hold LNG at arm's length and just survive through those power spikes.
Yeah, it's pretty strange because then we see them finish it out with the Renekton, so they're at least going to have some priority in the top side, but your comp doesn't really have any engage. It's going to be mostly playing around these globals and trying to create a numbers advantage with that Galio, as well as the Senna ultimate always able to come out and assist in a fight.
That's going to be the question, is can they create those numbers advantages? Because, I mean, we saw in the clips that they didn't necessarily do the best when it came to fighting with a numbers advantage against V5. So I'm hoping we can see a little bit more of a calculated version of Vici here today, and they can find those advantages for themselves. But as you rightly say, 2 global ultimates. I'm hoping Vici can be proactive.
Yeah, Vici definitely want to be the aggressors in this early game through topside with the Renekton, of course. Just letting that Senna scale up in the bot side is going to be fine, but what I want to look at for LNG is the fact that they are able to kite out Vici's comp, because we just said Vici have no truly good hard engage, right? Galio is just going to be able to try to flash in and then get his taunt. Renekton can look for a flank, but even then you only have a single target CC. Kalista doing amazing at kiting around the fight, especially with the Taric. Zoe going to do great, and then you also have the pillar for disengage coming out from XX. Just a lot of options in LNG's comp to deal with what Vici have drafted.
And the really scary thing about LNG's comp is you get a couple of kills on Light early. We've seen across the world how hard you can snowball with a Kalista. It does insane mid-game damage, and just the answer of a Renekton in those mid-game fights, if a few kills go the way of LNG, might just not be enough.
No, and now it's going to be about seeing if LNG can get Light to that point where he can snowball like you just talked about. So that first item when he gets the Blade of the Rune King will be very massive. And we do see runes on our screen now. And we talked about yesterday on broadcast how Volibear does have 3 options you can go for: press the attack, conquer, or grasp. Flandre does seem to opt into the grasp. He did last time as well against the Fiora. So it is more about short trades, gives you more of a sustain in lane, and about getting a bit tankier later on as well.
Yeah, looking for that survivability is, oh no, Boy, he's already been stunned up in the lane. The rend is stacking up. That's going to be exhaust used by Hung as well. That is not a good way to start this lane off from Boy.
But this is typical Boy in Season 10, right? We see him constantly make these sort of mistakes, blowing 2 summoner spells for 1, and sure, they do get some early prio, but you wouldn't expect this lane to be able to turn that into any tangible dive or objective as of yet.
Yeah, I don't know. Oh my goodness. Boy, come on, man. Like, just stand a little bit further back. You've got range. It's fine.
I guess to be fair, he is center, right? You do have sustain in your kit, and even Hung is going to have that Guardian, so Boy not under any real threat.
Actually, I guess ultimately, assuming you have enough mana to keep going, you're quite happy as Boy to take these trades. Wait, ultimately, you're going to heal.
You all also are against the Taric, right? So it's kind of sustain on both sides of the lane.
So let's just trade for the banter then. I'm down, Boy. I'm on. You know what? I was criticizing him before. Now I'm on board.
And with these comps, despite the fact that we've set up, hey, Vici have some options in the top side, and LNG very strong at 1 item. Gonna have a bit of a slower first 5 to 10 minutes.
So the big question for me on the side of Vici is, like, how does this Renekton actually fit into the composition? Because you mentioned before, so we get another stun onto Boy here. You mentioned before how, you know, Zika needed some hard engage to be able to find a way into the fight. Does Cube answer that with the Renekton?
Honestly, I don't think so. So I don't think you're just looking to play these straight up 5v5s if LNG are able to play it right. The way I expect this to pan out is Vici playing with Lu Yen in Zika once he hits that level 6 mark through top, because you should feel confident winning that top side 3v3. Galio ultimate could also just make it a 3v2, trying to snowball off that advantage, turn that into a Herald, and try to blow the game up from there.
So Vici, the ones that will have to try and make some moves on the top side of the map.
But XX is already headed there.
He's beating him to the punch on this one. Cube going to start this trade off early with Flandre. He's not winning out just yet, though. And now Flandre has some reinforcements on the way. Cube in a whole heap of trouble. He goes down for first blood.
Yeah, that was great coming out from LNG. We saw Flandre get the early push in top lane, got the bounce back, and XX with a great path to get up there and punish. Luckily for Cube, he didn't blow flash, so is still going to have that, but his minions are in a really awkward position. And actually, XX is still there.
Yeah, Leanne is on this bottom side of the map right now as well, and they were toying with the idea of moving Zika down. You can see him moving back to the mid lane, though. It means that Light and Duan will be able to just farm up these minions. And I think I like the decision not to dive here. That would have been really risky.
Right, because you look across the map, Maple and Flandre both still have TP, so if Vici do go for that dive and LNG can react quick enough, you would expect LNG to be the ones to come out ahead.
You definitely would. And ultimately, the junglers, or at least Lien, kind of focusing on the opposite side of the map to what we were expecting to start this one off. Cube is not having a fun time in this top lane against Flandre's Volibear. And when you consider the fact Cube is the early game power on Vici's roster, this is not a good sign.
No, and we talked before the game about how drafts would be so important to this game. And I really like what LNG put together. It looks a lot more holistic in kind of the direction of the comp. Vici, not so much in the fact that you're already struggling in your early position of power. Not a good sign.
See, I think you're maybe just LMS biased. I think you like the draft.LNG side because your boy Steak pulled it out of the box.
You know, I don't want you to reveal my secrets this early, Munch, but hey,
dude, I'm just waiting for the next CB LOL coach to come over to the LPL, and then we'll see the real bias.
You mean me next split?
Yeah, when you get picked up by Rogue Warriors, your favorite team.
Oh, God. Hey, we will get to see them later today, and going to be able to bring out that caster bias. But the thing for Vici, going back to game real quick, is that their comp doesn't really spike hard until 6, right? You're going to have these 2 global ultimates in the Galio and the Senna being able to come out now, and that's when you can really start trying to punish Vici on the opposite side of the map.
Zika getting a Justice Punch to dodge some, or attempt to dodge some damage there, but ultimately, he just gave more range on the paddle star, so he actually ended up taking more damage for it. But ultimately, he's going to be fine on the Galio. Now Lien, as he knows that XX moved out of the mid lane towards the top side, he gets to start this draw.
Yep, and even Zika doesn't even need to follow over. He's obviously always able to follow just with that ultimate, and I love XX just coming to be an annoyance with that pillar. Actually doesn't really do anything at all.
I'm not even sure why he went in there to pillar him. I just find it hilarious that he's like, Zika, get out of here. Give Maple this minion wave. So now we see XX moving towards this bottom side of the map once more. I'd love to see him try and make a play onto iBoy on Hung. Bear in mind that you do have this Kalista on the side of LNG. I'd love to see them try and snowball before all of these power spikes are hit for Vici.
Yeah, maybe they're waiting for that level 6 point where they will finally have some engage with the Kalista ultimate and then trying to chain that into a pillar. You would expect them to at least be able to burn some flashes from Vici, but instead now just playing a very stable early game. When you look at the CS advantages, that the side of LNG is being able to accrue in mid and top, and it does make a bit of sense.
Yeah, and ultimately, like, when you look at LNG so far this split, stable early game is definitely one of the strengths that they've had. It's not been an issue of necessarily early game play. It's later on in the game that we have issues with LNG. It's when they find a lead in the early game. How do they transition that into something more?
Yep, and it's kind of interesting because both teams, despite the fact that they're struggling, have very strong individual players, right? A lot of people obviously been hyped for iBoy for years. Hung looked really promising in spring as well as Cube. And even Lo Yen coming over from IG, a lot of people thought this would be a big upgrade on the roster. So being able to come out with an early game lead against these players is definitely impressive.
Yeah, and it's good to see Vici at least trying some stuff, but I know, Lyric, I know you have strong opinions about roster changes during the summer split. Perhaps it's too late for that, but hang on, Lien? Not going to start off the Herald. XX saw him, I think.
So LNG are the ones with pressure topside, so you would expect them to be willing to opt for this.
Maple moves away. Lien just gets a hit in on that one. He's going to be able to grab himself the blue buff. With both junglers on this top side of the map, but neither of the bot lanes moving here, I don't expect anyone to start this off.
The thing we got to remember is Senna with the Dawning Shadows, and Hung also always going to have that Abyssal Voyage, so they don't even necessarily need to walk all the way across the map for iBoy and Hung to be able to join this fight.
That's very true. The global ultimates could show their strength in the next couple of minutes. I'm going to get caught by a root here in the bottom lane, answered by a stun from Duan. But this poke damage out of iBoy is really starting to stack up on the bottom lane of LNG.
Yeah, this we've already highlighted this is a champion that we don't actually see all that often here in the LPL. Oh, and
so LNG starting this one off as Cube forced out over the pillar. And XX is the one on the Herald right now. He's the one that has priority here. And And I'm not sure if Lian is going to answer.
The thing that's surprising to me is that we don't see... I guess Hung and iBoy don't have any mana, but even just them hovering in Fog of War should put pressure on LNG to not be able to safely make that play.
Cube's still having a bit of a hard time in these trades, as XX does finish the Herald just in time. Lian moved in, but he's not going to be able to find anything here. And look at the CS deficit right now in that top lane. Similar story in the mid lane as well. We're starting to build some leads in the individual lane matchups for LNG.
Ooh, and yeah, Volibear's, so Volibear obviously just was reworked, so still a very new champion. We don't have a lot of data on all of these lane matchups, but the fact that he's able to push his small advantage over Cube so far is actually really surprising to me. Obviously, he does have a bit of an item advantage in the fact that he has the Sheen, but still, I wouldn't expect it to be this dominant.
And ultimately, like, you can see the Ninja tabbing for Cube, but the damage on the passive is magic damage, right? So as a melee top laner, Cube still is going to take a lot of harass just from the passive.
Along with the Sky Splitter, right? And we saw Cube having to use that E defensively to not even get hit by that damage.
So bear in mind, though, Flandre is very low on mana right now. So if Cube, with the Dominus available, could find himself an all-in, there is potential that he could still just win that one out.
The thing in his favor right now is, right, the fact that he doesn't use mana and Volibear is a champion that depends on it. You can try to attack that resource bar. And we can see now Flandre has no mana. So if you do go for that all-in, Flandre not going to have any sort of full combo to really trade back with you.
So now we see everyone just clearing away in the mid lane because we've got a Drake coming up in 30 seconds here, Lyric. And I'd expect with the first Drake going their way already, with these power spikes and the ultimates across the board here, Vici could use this as an opportunity to try and use these global ultimates and find a pick.
I kind of expect them to want to trade towards topside for the fact that LNG have Heralds, so they can try to draw Vici's attention elsewhere, and that Flandre's TP is going to come up first, but we actually see Cube already heading just straight towards Dragon.
All right, we've got a fight on our hands. You can see Flandre is in the base. He's got his TP in just a second. In fact, he is going to start moving up towards his top lane in the end. But let's bear in mind, Taric has hit level 6. This is a pretty big spike for LNG as well. Light taking a huge amount of damage though. Stun going to go wide from Duan in the meantime. Dragon already started teleport here from Flandre. In they go, but the Dragon goes the way of Vici. And now chased back into their own jungle. Flandre goes in. Dawning Shadow across the team as well. Flandre looking to find a pick. They need to get something because they lost the Dragon. But now, with the Grand Entrance, they deny everything from Flandre. The collapse from Vici here as they're trying to start this fight. But LNG answer now with the Radiance. Zika forced out. They're trying to get a kill onto Hung. The thick skin keeps him safe, but now flashes away with his own life. How is this fight so chaotic? No kills on either side.
Yeah, and it was absolutely crazy. Really unfortunate that Light and Duan weren't able to join the fight earlier since they are the consistent engage for LNG. If they'd been able to get on Vici just a bit earlier, Hung definitely would have gone down.
That went from 0 to 100 real fast in this game, and somehow nobody dies on either side of the scoreboard.
So ultimately, Vici being the ones to benefit, having 2 Drakes to none, still a very slight gold lead for LNG, but I think even in that fight, we saw the way that LNG's composition can work if it's already grouped up as a 5-man.
And honestly, the fact that Vici were able to get away with no casualties in that fight, when the Divine Radiance came on through, and or the Cosmic Radiance, sorry, came through, and LNG started to push into the blue buff, it looked like Hung was caught. It looked like Zika was caught as well, but they both somehow managed to squeeze out without losing too much. So ultimately, a huge win for Vici.
But LNG now going to use this Rift Herald. Still, the fact that Lilian's here, you don't expect LNG to be able to get too much.
Should be able to get themselves a couple of plates and a bit more gold towards Flandre here. And, I mean, ultimately, look at the 2 characters that you've got here. There isn't really a way to close the gap onto Flandre, so he can position still very aggressively in this top.
And Flandre is going to be really close to getting his Triforce. So Triforce coming out for Flandre, Maple already having the Luden's Echo, and Blade of the Rune King for Light. So this is where we would expect LNG to want to look for these fights.
And I'm hoping that they do. This is what we need to see now out of LNG, is some decisive play. Because some of the issues that they've been having in the late stages of the game are shot calling issues, right? It's coordination issues. So when they are spiking in the early stages, we got to see them abusing that.
Even you highlighting that, ooh, but actually we see Maple going up towards topside and Ping's already coming out. So we might get a dive from LNG.
They're not doing it.
They baited us.
They're not doing it.
You're asking for action. It looks like they're going to give us action. And then never mind. I mean, Zika does have ultimate, but I don't know much.
You sound really disappointed. Yeah, so often when I'm listening to you cast Lyric, you sound like the disappointed dad of the LPL, where it's like, guys, you're better than this. Come on, players.
I kind of feel like the disappointed dad of LPL. I see the play set up right. You see the vision come down. Ooh.
Hang on,
Action
FLICKR
coming
is
out
in trouble here, jumps away, but Cube is trying to chase him down. No, Cube has decided not. We're not going to get any action today.
I mean, he forced the ult out of FLICKR, but yeah, we're getting nothing.
I mean, it was with his own ult, so even that's an even trade.
This goes back to a great conversation you were starting about wanting to see action out of LNG, and it leads me to saying that the only time I see LNG be very proactive in the early game is when XX has a champion that could be proactive, an engager like the Jarvan, which he did have in their last series against OMG, where they got those early game leads. And the fact that he's on something like a Trundle, which sure is a strong early duelist, isn't really something that can proactively go and start a play.
And, I mean, a huge portion of that is the draft coming out from Vici. We were talking about Coma versus Stake. The second round of bans out of Vici, it was the Olaf, it was the Jarvan. So removing some of these champions that XX can just run forwards with and make the play happen.
Exactly. So overall, pretty good strategy coming out from Vici. We do finally get a turret trade 1-for-1. Neither comp really wants to play too hard around their side lanes. We've seen that Volibear is doing better in the straight-up 1v1, but obviously Vici's comp has ways to answer if FLICKR tries to all-in Cube.
I mean, the Tahm Kench alone is already going to be a huge answer when it comes to the all-in potential out of LNG. But I'm curious now, as we're getting towards this mid-game, Lyric, where do we need to be looking on the map? Because we mentioned how Vici are going to spike around the mid-game with this Renekton. Obviously, Galio's ultimate is huge there as well. But there's a lot of mid-game power from LNG too.
Well, exactly. So, especially when you have something like a Kalista on the map, you always expect to look towards neutral objectives, right? We've already painted out that neutral objectives are going to be the name of the game. LNG's comp does want to look for these 5v5 team fights. They are really strong right now. So, with Dragon coming up right now, we should be expecting to see something.
We've set it up for the neutral objectives, and a neutral objective we have on the table here. Bear in mind, Vici already have 2 Drakes themselves, so this would be the Ocean Soul point for them. Very big objective to grab. LNG certainly not going to want to let this go without a fight. Charge comes down in the mid lane.
Ultimately, though, Zika does still have his ultimate, so smart move having him answer. Now we really want to see if Maple can lay down some good poke on the Zoe, and then we have this engage coming out from Light and 1.
So Vici trying to pull this Drake out of the pit right now. Lien is going to have his work cut out with the smite. He is a level up right now in that jungle as we get the fight coming on through, but it's stolen away. Knockups across the team now as FLICKR kept alive by his team. Zika forced back as well. The damage just isn't here from Vici. They can't answer the skirmish in any way.
It's really interesting to see. It doesn't matter that Vici actually don't have engage. They're just going to be able to get to the objectives first, force LNG to come into them, and then just be able to kite back because they do have a lot of defensive tools.
Lien was 2 levels up and lost the smite bite there. Stun onto Cube as he flashes away now. It's just going to be a heal from iBoy as LNG move towards this mid lane. They have a slight numbers advantage. They might just be able to get it out.
Yeah, they are still going to have all this poke coming out from Maple. And Vici have already used a lot of their tools, the dominance from Cube as well as Zika's ultimate, so not really going to have any way of going forward into LNG.
And you know what, when you think of Lien on IG, you think of him as this kind of farm-heavy jungler, right? That's going to be able to stack up an advantage. And he's done exactly that in the jungle. He's 2 levels up. He's 60 CS up over XX. But if you can't turn that into objectives, it kind of doesn't matter.
You're right. And an interesting thing to pay attention to going forward is, so we've seen if Vici can get on an objective first, they can find the fight, but ooh.
Hang on, Lien's in trouble here. Stun comes out. FLICKR will be rooted by iBoy, though. iBoy's going to be able to save his jungler from this one.
Yep, so Lien does obviously have to blow Flash, but I wouldn't say it's too big of a loss. But going back to the point, if Vici can get on an objective first, they can potentially get a fight in their favor just from how many defensive and disengaged tools they have and try to kind of kite out what LNG have. At the same time, if LNG get on something like a Dragon or Baron first, Vici are able to face check. They do have some tanks and have some sustain, but they don't really have a good way of starting that fight off.
Yeah, they don't have too much poke either. So if LNG are able to hold them away for a little bit, the damage out of Maple could be significant, especially if a couple of trouble bubbles land.
Exactly. So for LNG, we're really looking at Maple to be the big deciding factor for LNG.
Which could be a good thing, could be a bad thing. Because we've seen a couple of different versions of Maple so far this split. We've seen moments, and it was on the Zoe, where he manages to get an insane double kill in the bottom lane. But we've also seen some suboptimal plays.
But if there was a split in the LPL where Maple has shown some reliability, it has been this split, right? So it's good to see LNG giving him this responsibility. And now Maple just needs to step up like he has in some of their wins already, right? They have 2 series wins and pick up another one against Vici.
I just don't know if I'm ready to believe yet, you know. I started this split
You were
off.
the big believer.
I was excited. I was real excited. They beat FPX. They beat RNG back-to-back on the trot. And then they go up against E-Star, and it's like a totally different roster showed up. Even though it was the same players, or at least it was the same names on the screen, it felt like they'd forgotten how to play League of Legends. So I don't know if I'm ready to believe in Maple again yet.
And they gave OMG their first win, right? So that one's a big disappointment. We still saw them having some good gameplay in that series, but the fact that you didn't get the W is all that matters at the end of the day.
So FLICKR moves back into this bottom lane now. He's going to continue to match Cube. And the thing about Renekton is he doesn't scale all that well. So even though he lost the early lane matchup, he also will continue to lose this lane matchup in the 1v1. Because FLICKR is only going to get tankier, but also with that Triforce, you can't underestimate how much damage this Volibear does.
Exactly. He's going to do really well in these isolated trades. The good thing for Vici is they will still have late game damage coming out from the Senna and Graves. But for Vici, we really just want to see them abuse the globals. We've kept talking about globals, and actually it looks like they're going to look for it right now.
Zika looking to make the play, although he is one of the global ults. He's already here. Abyssal Voyage to follow up on this one as well. Maple, the man that you said we need to be looking out for, is already gone on the play. FLICKR is too late and has to walk away.
Ultimately, Vici just punishing an overstep from Maple, but great job at Vici utilizing the narrow windows and narrow opportunities their comp gives them to find advantages.
Cube in the meantime shoves out in the bottom wave and then moves out elsewhere on the map, knowing that he needs to not get caught, not give LNG an answer here. Bear in mind, the next Drake spawning in 35 seconds. Maple will obviously be back by then, but it gives an opportunity here for Vici to set up vision.
Exactly, and that's massive when we set up that Vici can do a good job in these team fights if they can pull LNG into them. LNG are still on strong item power spikes. Maple picking up that Oblivion Orb, and Kalista gonna be on the 2 items. Of course, Kalista very strong early game AD carry.
Hang on, LNG have been caught out here. It's XX as the target right now. Cosmic Radiance not going to be used just yet, but maybe needs to be. XX flashes away.
And FLICKR was taking Krugs, I think.
Not the best place to be when a fight's about to start, but Lien's here. FLICKR moves in to try and make the play happen for himself. But he ain't that tanky just yet. Maple going over the wall, but iBoy's kept safe by Hung. Now we group up once more. Bear in mind, there's a lot of CC on the side of Vici.
Yeah, I think Vici will find to just keep doing this. They still have Dominus up as well as Zika's ultimate as well.
Could have the fight here. In they go with the Cosmic Radiance. Cube keeps himself safe though when the Drake is taken. But at what cost? iBoy stunned in the backline. Hung trying to pull him out to safety himself. And LNG looking to win the fight. Light keeps himself safe but walks straight into Zika. And maybe Vici turned this one around. Unbelievable here as FLICKR gets a double. And iBoy, you got to keep your eyes on the AD carry. Hung is going to be the next one to fall. And FLICKR is all over this game. You can't turn him off of the roster because he's large and in charge, and he's the man in the top lane here. Charging on forwards, it's going to be the Quadra.
And FLICKR showing why he should come back in this roster, feeling so confident to blind pick this Volibear, even after last week's missteps, with putting LNG in his backpack and carrying them to the teamfight win.
And you know what? It looked like Vici would turn that one around. It looked like iBoy would have the damage, but FLICKR just tore them apart.
When Light jumped into Zika, I was like, okay, this is over for LNG, but still doing a great job. Let's keep our eyes here. FLICKR jumps in. They find great damage onto Cube, gets super low. And keep your attention on Light. He's jumping into Luyen. We see a great Dawning Shadow come out from iBoy right here. Keeps Luyen safe, and then Zika's like, hello, thank you very much. And here's where it gets a bit dicey for me, right? But FLICKR having the confidence to keep walking forward is obviously very far ahead on this Volibear and is able to just clean up this team fight for LNG.
And ultimately, you've got a Graves and you've got this Senna. The damage is going to be much more significant later on into the game. So iBoy just not really able to pump out the numbers that they needed.
I also love that he picked up this Righteous Glory as well. We actually haven't seen this item come out all that much. It typically is something like the Randuin's or Death's Dance, but instead just going to feel confident running at the backline of Vici.
And now every single fight, you've got to keep your eyes glued to FLICKR and what he can pull out on this Volibear. Because we talked about Kalista spiking, we talked about Zoe spiking, but FLICKR is the one with all the gold.
And we've seen in the LEC and LCS, Volibear is a super high priority. In LEC, they're first picking it, but of course it's mostly jungle. In LCS, we're seeing it banned in first rotation quite often.
Not really seen as much priority here in the LPL, but FLICKR making a case for why we should. He's going to jump away. And that means that it's basically a teleport wasted here from Zika.
Yep. Teleport for an ultimate. Not exactly worth, but at least Zika is obviously running in Sealed Spellbooks, and we'll be able to switch to some other summoner spell.
Good damage onto Hung here. Leanne kept in the fight by the pillar, but ultimately no follow-up from the side of LNG.
And we do see that Maple finish the Morellonomicon, which up against a lot of the healing coming out from the Senna as well as the Renekton, I feel like the pickup is actually fine. So LNG going to be doing a lot of damage in these fights, and LNG opening up the possibility of stacking 4 Ocean Drakes. But with the way these compositions interact, I actually don't expect the game to go that far. It's going to be a lot down to these next big fights.
And honestly, with LNG's track history, 4 Ocean Drakes doesn't seem to be enough for them.
Yeah.
The Trouble Bubble is going to land, though, here onto Leanne. Nicely done by Hung to keep his jungler safe. Let's bear in mind, though, LNG, they want to play around these neutral objectives. Baron is available, but they have a Kalista, so they can always just try and force. FLICKR is caught again, though, here, actually. Doesn't have his flash available. The shield will keep him safe. The exhaust isn't enough, and he walks away from all 5 members of Vici.
Yeah, overall, great job from him being able to get away. Vici able to get an objective, and just going to be turned into some resets with Dragon coming up in a minute, so these teams going to want to refresh their wards.
So now Vici, they're the ones to move in, try and get some vision control of this Baron, but realistically, they're not looking at the Baron. As you rightly said, Dragon's up in just under a minute's time. Vici already on soul point. This Ocean Drake is very much going to be a turning point. If Vici can get it, it might just decide to get it.
Right, because if they get it, it doesn't matter when Maple's really the only one putting down this long-range damage. So Maple throws out a Paddle Star, you walk back for a few seconds, you're already back up to full health.
And let's bear in mind, like, the scaling on Vici is pretty great anyway, especially with this Senna. The range of the damage is only going to keep increasing.
Yep.
FLICKR steps forward here. Now, 20 seconds on this Ocean Drake. How do Vici get in to make this play?
At this point, it feels really tough because Vici would have wanted to abuse a pushing lane with those globals, right? Bringing Galio to a fight first.
Hang on, FLICKR is just running straight in. He's got a Cosmic Radiance, and he is an invincible bear straight onto iBoy. Down come the paws, and in go the claws. Zika trying to get away on the back line. Flash for the double stun from Duan as Leanne barely getting away from the bear up towards the top half of the map. He's desperately trying to run here. Cube stops FLICKR in his tracks, but ultimately can't do anything to him. This game is just FLICKR against the world.
And we've talked about how the composition for LNG just looks so good coming into this series. And FLICKR showing that you're going to start needing to ban out this bear, picking up 2 kills, a mid lane turret, and another Ocean Drake.
I mean, what if you're iBoy, what do you do in that situation when FLICKR just jumps at you every fight while invincible?
And think about it. You have Galio taunt protecting you. You have Tom Kench's Devour protecting you. There's not many more tools you can put around iBoy to keep him safe.
And it's still not enough. It's feeling a little Olaf-y, right? When you get a fed Olaf that's got a Taracore and it just runs at the AD carry. I'm getting very similar vibes here. The Baron getting very low though, stacking up on the Ren from Light. FLICKR going to play the zoning game as he charges straight up towards iBoy. Once again, there's nothing iBoy can do. The Baron goes down. There's another couple of kills. This is over for Vici. Cube desperately slicing his way out of the jungle, but FLICKR's so damn quick, there's nowhere you can go. There is no place that is safe from the claws of FLICKR.
And it's just kind of so funny to see him constantly popping his Q, getting that movement speed, dropping to all fours, and chasing the members of Vici around the map. He feels fine just ignoring all damage coming his way as well.
Yeah, this is suddenly looking not so hot for Vici.
It's also strange when you look at his build. He actually picked up a Spirit Visage to amplify some of the healing he's doing when Vici don't have all that much magic damage.
They have basically no magic damage. I mean, Galio is not exactly your massive damage dealer on the side of Vici. But hey, you know what? The extra heal, it seems to be working because I can't even see him losing health during these fights. Now iBoy getting chased down by Light as well. Hun keeps him safe. But ultimately, LNG, they're just here for the end.
Yep, and now they're just going to be able to turn towards bot. Actually, they might just be able to recall straight up. No one coming to answer FLICKR anyway.
I want to see FLICKR go for the Dead Man's Plate. I want to see him go for the Ghost Blade. I want to see him just run people down on this.
We've seen a lot of different builds on Volibear so far. We've seen Randu in Sunfire Cage, Death Stance. I've seen Thornmail. But yeah, here we see him chasing down iBoy, and I guess having all the peel of like a Galio and Tahm Kench doesn't matter when you're by yourself. Great job, FLICKR, punishing that opportunity. Here we just see him continuously chasing down Vici. Gonna start up that Q once again, throw down his Sky Splitter, get the stun, and to secure another kill.
It was kind of twofold, that one, right? Because, you know, great from FLICKR. He sees iBoy, he's obviously going to run him down. But also, like, iBoy, why are you there? You know that FLICKR's around. You know you can't 1v1 this bear. I don't know why you're stood so far away from your team.
It's probably disappointing for a lot of long-time watchers of the LPL who followed iBoy's career, see how he stagnated in 2020, where a lot of the times we are looking at him asking, hey, what are you doing? Why are you here? Because we do that, seems like almost every Vici game.
Yeah, and I mean, the Cogmore game is the one that stands out to me back in spring. I was so excited to see Cogmore. We got to see it in the bottom lane. They scaled up to the late game, and then at 40 minutes, he just walked out in the mid lane and got caught. And it was, you know, not the highlight of his career, but it started to get consistent.
That pillar.
Nobody can devour Hunk. He is the devourer. He's going to be devoured by Maple on this one. I think that pick might just be game.
Yeah, that pillar was oh my god, the paddle star from Maple.
Well. This is beautifully done. And you know what, Maple, he was the guy that we were saying, hey, which one's going to show up today? He's looking pretty good on the Zoe. This will be another in-hit, but honestly, they can just try and force this one through now. One Nexus Tower is going to fall. LNG stepping forwards here. In goes FLICKR straight onto Liet. He's just doing so much damage. Cube can't tank him up long enough, and Duan happy to be the beefy front line here as the damage goes through onto iBoy. This is going to be everything. Maybe a couple more kills, maybe padding the stats just a little bit for XX here. But ultimately, the Nexus will fall. Light going in. And this feels like a bit of a celebration win here for LNG. Off the back of a 0-2-0-2 loss streak, they find themselves a game.
And it feels great for FLICKR when we saw him get kind of outplayed by Curse when they played OMG, when he was on this Volibear, having the confidence to blind pick it once again.